Hello, and a warm welcome to my channel, Sleeper's Corner. This video is part 5 of an 8-part story. If you are yet to hear the previous parts, I would suggest that you do so before listening to this episode of Upon the Horizon. The story continues with our protagonist sat on a Goan beach and facing questions about her life. Shall we see if she finds any answers? I'm Rock, and I've written and narrated every word of what you are about to hear. I'm hoping that you are nice and comfortable and are ready to close your eyes and to be taken on a journey to an elsewhere. This is Upon the Horizon, Part 5. As long as the moon that cyclically orbits planet Earth endures, the tides of water will roll inland before quietly pulling back out to sea. It is a natural pattern of an everlasting impossible to calculate equation. Even now, with all of your understanding of mathematics, for all of your bespoke knowledge of numbers, when you think of the sea, it equates to an unplayable poker hand. It will always be beautifully incalculable. Like receiving a heavy punch to the chest, you realize with a thump that despite everything that you have done and everything that you have in your adult life achieved, you are still that young girl in Hastings, looking out at the sea with more questions than answers. It is apparent that since then, nothing has really changed. Everything really is just all the very same. The mere concept of the sea still fascinates you with all of its brilliant colors, with all of its absolute darkness. It still can, with its grand beauty, steal from you your breath. After walking so far, while so sleeplessly tired, you know that you are finally here. And the sea here in Goa is different from the sea that you saw for the very first time in Hastings as an 8-year-old. Yet it somehow manages to be the very same. The tint of the colour of the water here may be different from what you saw on that Sussex coast. The sea that your father beckoned you to say hello to may hold different aquatic life, but it still feels the very same. There are no pebbles here that will fight the soles of your feet. Instead, there is a golden sand that shimmers in the sunlight and stretches out towards the very edge of the water. No longer young, and now able to make your own decisions, you boarded a flight from Heathrow to Dubai. And then, after a long walk through an endlessly large airport, and after some more hours of waiting, you boarded your second and final flight from there, directly here to Goa. Throughout the majority of your journey, you remained largely sleepless, and now your body aches, and it demands rest. Yet you cannot rest yet, for you are here in Goa. It was always the sea that was calling you. Regardless of what your body is demanding from you now, your heart has long demanded something more. This, you tell yourself, is exactly the reason why it is that you are now here. Wherever you are in the world, if there is the sea, you want to be right there. You think of that one special summer in Hastings and how it was that you felt when seeing the sea for the very first time. You can remember bonding with something that had only ever lived within the pages of books that you had read. You can remember how you felt that a connection with the sea was being forged. You can right now relive the excited tingles that you felt. The sea was real, and even though you had never seen it before, it felt like it was yours. You also now think back to the many other times that you have been close to the coast, on those many holidays to destinations that never really were of your choosing. You remember how you felt that as long as there was a seaside, There was a sense of relief in knowing that if nothing else, you could at least stand on a beach and once again look out at the ocean. And now, finally here, stood on a Goan beach and looking out at the vast sea again, you can feel how this has all been a journey that inside of your heart began so very long ago. And you think about how it is that you have finally reached your ultimate destination. You are here because you have made it happen, and you are here because you want to be here. You walk upon the golden Goan sand, and you understand that you are now amidst something that is unequivocally purely natural. Sure, here there are man-made shacks and the rows and rows of sun lounges and cabanas, but beyond that, there really only is nature. Above you in the sky, seagulls glide along the invisible currents of the breeze. There are no buildings that can block your view. There is nothing that can interrupt you. Above you, there is only the blue of the sky. In the far distance, where the limits of your eyesight reach, you can see the line where the ocean meets that sky. Out there, far away, you can see that maybe some clouds form and that they hover above the ocean. But the truth is, you cannot be sure that what you look upon is not just an optical illusion. Maybe you can see the formation of young clouds levitating above the glistening waters of these seas, or maybe what you are looking at is only the blur of the horizon. Your eyesight is having to adjust to the brightness of the sunlight that reflects off of the surface of the water, and therefore everything that is out there, far out there, is appearing to you in a hazy, thick blur. You think to yourself that it must have been years since you last saw something that was as beautiful as this seafront. It must have been years since you have loved what your eyes have shown you. It is an expansive view that is so gloriously extensive, it yet again steals your breath from you. It is a view that cannot be marred by human touch. It is a view that cannot be modernized by something made of steel or glass. It is, in a sense, a place that is purely innocent. Directly ahead of you, across what looks like an expansive desert of sand, as your eyes continue to adjust to the brightness, you begin to be able to see the gradual revelation of a revelation. And you again, after years of separation, can begin, with a growing clarity, to view the infinite star of the show. The sea. Your sea. Unsteadily, you begin to walk across the sand. Even from this distance, you are able to hear the endlessly repetitive echo of the incoming tide. It is quiet, but it is a sound that reaches deep inside of you and tenderly grabs at something that you can neither identify nor even begin to quantify. This miracle, you think to yourself, is still capable of holding a nameless power of wonder over you. There are other people hovering beside and around you, other visitors to this beach, but you easily disregard them and their existence. You see none of them, because now you can only see what you want to see. Beneath your feet is a warm, dry sand. You are not wearing sandals, nor are you barefoot, but still you can feel the heat of the sand rising up through the soles of your footwear. You stop in your tracks. You close your eyes and allow yourself to fall deep into an inner darkness that lives inside of your own anima. You deeply inhale that very specific aroma of the ocean. Inside of the darkness that lives within your soul, without the hindrance of sight, your other senses kick into overdrive, and you begin to be able to hear her, to really hear her. Even from this distance, you can hear the ocean chanting. Your mind has always been inclined to race along endless avenues of the incalculable. It has always searched for the deep, almost invisible patterns that you have always suspected can exist in what initially appears to be merely an enchanting province of random chaos. You open your eyes and you allow yourself to see again. And there she is. There is the ocean in front of you, wave after wave. She sings, she chants, and she breathes. Directly ahead of you, between you and the water, is that vast valley of golden sand. The sun from above dances off of the tiny pieces of the world that has invariably washed up and accumulated onto the surface of this beach. How, you ask yourself, can something that has never lived feel so full of life? If you were to reach down and grab yourself a handful of that sand from beneath your feet, and then attempt to hold that sand inside of the palm of your hand, it would simply find a way to escape through the cracks between your fingers. How is it that something so unattainable can in turn feel so very real? A scene of absolute beauty is set out in front of you. You can absorb the glory of the colors that you can see, even as within you there still exists a growing aching tiredness. Yet despite that rising sense of exhaustion, you are able to find a strength to persevere beyond the huge desire to find a corner somewhere to sleep. You somehow even have the mind power to acknowledge that you have traveled for so many miles to be right here, to have this exact view. You cannot help but to, inside of your tired mind, calculate. It is a default for you. You can feel anything, you can see anything, you can love anything, but you still just need to add everything up into a tidy equation. And right now, you cannot help but calculate that you have traveled not just for miles, but you have traveled for years to get here. The many years have been so very long. There has been so much time that you have had to endure every little thing that wasn't this moment. You have had to tolerate everything that was not this place. And now that you are finally here, out of a sheer relief, you allow yourself to let out a slow release of a deep breath from deep within yourself. And here, in front of you, is your long-lost friend. In front of you is the ocean. The beach, looking like a culmination of millions of years of existence, shines in front of you. You absorb its colors. You can see the strikingly sharp yellows of the sand, and you see how the wetter that the dry sand gets, the darker it becomes. And it gets wetter because the sea always keeps on coming. It falls back, but then, as if it were changing its mind, rolls right back in again. And again. And again. It never gives up. You can hear the sound of the water meeting the dryness of the land. There is a distinct sizzling sonority, one that is not dissimilar to what you could perhaps hear on a hot summer's day at a back garden barbecue. Ahead of you is the point where the golden sand meets the water. Or maybe it is the other way around. You can see how the froth from the death of the sacrificed waves that hit dry land is so deeply white that it almost appears like what you would expect to see from a chemical reaction in some lab somewhere. Yet despite that froth, the water of the sea that stretches out forever, the water that you can see appears to be so beautifully pure. It is clean, it is light, and it looks so invitingly fresh. This is the sea. This is the place you think to yourself where answers may just live, answers to questions that you are yet in your mind to fully formulate. You allow yourself to let go. You allow yourself to release yourself from yourself, to be released from whatever it is that could be holding you back, that could be holding you down, that can be holding onto you. And by releasing yourself from it, you find yourself inviting an exposure to inner insecurities that have always remained buried within you. For so long, so much that has been inside of you has existed like a silent partner. For so long, it has cast long shadows across you. You comprehend the fact that these insecurities that have squatted within you seem to have done so for a never-ending time. It has taken you so long to have finally gotten here to this city and to this beach, but it has taken you even longer to dissect this level of inner vulnerability. Wherever you are inside of this. Or maybe this has just always been inside of you. As the water of the ocean glimmers in front of you, you somehow find yourself landing upon unexpected conclusions. You can hear the voice of a long dormant part of you that is telling you that in life nothing really needs to be completely certain. There needn't exist a great master plan consisting of explanatory equations. You feel a sudden sense of relief untangling itself from deep inside of you, as if a lock that had always existed was finally being turned, and the key was just seeing the ocean for only a few mere minutes. The ocean, the sea, your long-lost friend, is affording you with an ability to relent from attempting to always micromanage yourself, from always dictating like a crazy despot what you feel, what you can embrace, or even the paths that you must follow. In a strange yet utterly confusing way, you feel that you are able to simultaneously both escape from yourself whilst also being capable of escaping deeper within yourself. Maybe you tell yourself it is the tiredness that you feel that has created this misalliance in your thinking. But then you question if there exists a bigger picture, a broader landscape that is creating a miscarriage inside of your thinking. You do not want to feel that you are actively escaping from yourself. You do not wish to be running into a dark night as if you were pursued by some unknown faceless villain. Yet at the very same time, you do want to feel that you are running towards yourself, as if you have finally understood that your savior isn't elsewhere, but that your savior can and must forever only exist within the fathoms of the deeper parts of you. That place that lives within the fathoms of you, the place that you have seldom scrutinized. It carries a sense of loss that you have hidden from yourself for so very long. That forgotten loss of your father strikes at you like an angry cobra. You have actively buried the sadness deep inside of yourself for so long. And here, you actively chase yourself into that hidden place, because what you have never wanted to feel, what you have never wanted to carry inside of yourself, is now revealing itself to be the villain that you have always ran from. The sense of loss that once skimmed the surface of your existence just may have, at some stage, taken on a life of its own. Maybe it moved in as a temporary guest inside of your mindset and then made itself at home forever. Maybe it moved the furniture around, and after so many years of holding a power and control over the way that you thought, it painted the windows of your soul so much that it became a filter that growingly made it impossible for you to look out into the world and to see anything with any real clarity. You now force yourself to realign your own thinking. This place, this Goan seaside, you tell yourself, is somewhere that is lovely. It feels lovely to be here. It just may also be lovely to finally not just exist within yourself, but to confront what has always prevented you from actually growing to become your actual true self. Always being that person that attempts to calculate everything. Throughout the ages of your life, you now admit that you have possibly attempted to quantify every situation, every circumstance, and every choice that you have ever made, because it eliminated from the equation your ability to feel. And if every emotion that you have hidden from yourself is just some kind of toxic venom that you have avoided by applying logic to feeling, applying order to the chaos that you have relinquished the agency to feel, then maybe, as you now look out at the sea, as you view how the sea can exist within the grasps of such randomness, you can begin to accept an understanding that in coming face to face with the ocean, you are seeing that another form of existence may just be capable. Feeling emotions may just be chaotic, and applying order may just be calculative. But you now are here because of every single term, every single constant, every single coefficient and variable that have all grown to be key components of the equation of your life. And by seeing the sea in front of you, you have finally met your match. Just maybe, you have met an antidote to the venom that has seemingly forever plagued you. As someone that has always overthought, as a person that has by default always attempted to apply a mathematical configuration to all of your understandings, you find that as you look out at the beautiful randomness of the sea, you are being outfought by something that has zero motivation to do so. Intelligence and smartness is not part of the sea's intention, nor a part of its motivation. The sea simply refuses to be calculated, but not because it wants to deceive, nor because it wants to betray, but because it simply is just existing. It is just being itself. And maybe that is the smartest thing, that despite all of your own intentions, it can do better than you can. Millions of miles away, the moon pushes it forwards and pulls it back. It is a pure nature that is very much formulated from all the way out of this world. You look at how, one after the other, those waves fight losing battles and die right in front of your eyes. They come in, and these waves just surrender to their break. You have always attempted to measure everything, but what lives in front of you is immeasurable. The beauty of what you are now looking towards is fundamentally almost incompatible with everything you have ever learnt. It is incompatible with everything you have ever been taught. You watch the waves as they argue against everything that you have always been told to be, and who you have as a result fundamentally become. This is the destination. The spreading ocean encroaching up to meet the sands of everything that was never meant to be something. The realizations you are arriving at is why you boarded those planes. You can see in the waves a continuity of a distinct cycle of movement. You can see within the never-endingly unspoken goal of the waves to reach for something it can maybe never attain, how it is a proclamation of incessant hope. Somehow, as if you were translating the motions of the waves into some kind of understandable language, you are able to understand something. The sea exists beyond its existence. It does what it does because it is what it is. It never gives up, regardless of every single outcome. It drives forwards despite its countless losses. It pushes inland, even though it can never live amongst the dryness of land. It persists because it cannot not persist. In a way that you cannot really decipher, in a way that exists beyond and above your ability to recognize and exactly pinpoint meaning. The sea is simply the sea being the sea. It is not trying to be something that it isn't. It is not being led. It pushes and pulls. It sacrifices itself in order to be itself. Just like when you were younger, you feel that ocean holds at the deepest depths of its existence a beautiful and undiscovered truth. You know that you want this truth. You need it now more than ever. In all of its motion and mystery, the sea can maybe give you what you have always yearned for. As the sea breeze flutters across your face, you understand that you have finally found the answer to the question you did not know you were even asking. You begin to walk further across the sand, towards the point where the ocean meets the dry land. Stepping on dry, warm sand that wouldn't be out of place in the Atacama Desert in Chile. You breathe the ocean air that reminds you of your childhood, that reminds you of that family holiday in Hastings. It reminds you of your father. The sand underfoot begins to give way a little bit less. It becomes tighter, more solid and compact with every one of your steps. Above you, birds, seagulls sing their endless chorus. The sun reflects off of the moist sand and off of the casual waves that slowly roll in to meet the beachfront. You cannot help but think that here, in this place, in this moment, everything is entirely everything. Everywhere that you have always been has always, at least spiritually, always been right here. You can see it, where the land ends and where the sea begins. Two worlds meeting, and as the tide pulls away, two worlds separating. The sound of the water clapping against the sand obliterates you. It feels unlike your everyday life in London, like nature is reaching into you through your ears. It is something that in turn creates an emotional response that cannot be replicated. There is a crisp embracement of everything that is watery and luscious, abruptly meeting the aridness of the warm, dry sand. Looking out towards the ocean in front of you, you cannot help but imagine yourself feeling buried beneath an unquantifiable tonnage of water. Beneath the surface of the sea, deep down where profound secrets live, secrets that have been submerged and hidden for millennia. It is a place where sunken treasure and buried truths exist. This isn't, you understand, simply a numbers game. And that is how always you have seen life. Everything, every single moment has always, at least to some extent, been equatable. You have felt that there has always been an inescapable sum game. It is getting warmer. The waters of the sea look cool and refreshing, almost invitingly so. You step back and sit down, untying the laces of your footwear. You then slide your shoes off of your feet and then remove your socks. Your feet breathe in the sea air. You rise up from the warm sand of the beach, back onto your now bare feet, and you step forwards towards your long-lost friend. As you step into the wet, as the lukewarm water of the Arabian Sea playfully caresses your naked feet, you understand that essentially nothing can simply always be accountable. Maybe just like the waves that can never truly be counted, just like the tide that can never truly be computed, maybe people, with all of their choices and experiences and emotions and feelings, also cannot be truly calculable. Maybe disorder is in order. Maybe it is chaos that going forwards you should attempt to embrace. You can feel the breath that you hold in your chest being squeezed towards some kind of higher plane. It is taken from you because of how the light of the sun looks as it plays on the shimmering surface of the water in front of you. The sheer beauty penetrates part of you that has for so long lived hollow and empty. The dancing shivers of sharp bright lights reflect the sun like frolicking particles of fragmented glass. You step back and sit down again on the dry sand. Your breathing is voyaging far away from you, voyaging in an out-of-body experience to somewhere that is beyond anywhere that you have ever truly been able to previously reach. And like a thumping collision of the unexpected, you feel the abrupt arrival of a gentle and graceful peace. Just like you sought when you were younger, just like what you chased when you were in Hastings. And now, just like then, you can feel just how much it is that you need this peace. Because of the flights, because of your lack of sleep, because of your tiredness and the time changes. You're not sure if it was the night before last or maybe even last night when back in London in the apartment you shared with your then boyfriend, you yet again could not sleep. Beside you, laying deep in the land of his own dreams, he quietly snored. It didn't keep you awake. He wasn't loud enough, but it certainly didn't help. It had been weeks since you had slept for more than 6 hours in any one given night. Every morning you would wake up feeling like you were in that same old hole of a sleep debt, and you would check your smartwatch and the app that you had downloaded that could tell you how much, or how, in your case, little you had just slept. In life, sometimes one big event changes everything, but also an accumulation of many small events can have the very same effect. Wherever you are in the world, if you can count, you may just be right there at the place, inside of the moment, when all of those little events grow to become too impossible to ignore. Lying sleeplessly in your bed, your mind would tumble down proverbial stairs, and you would silently find yourself assessing everything that was your life. It wasn't something that you purposely chose to do. It just kind of happened naturally, much like how the waves from the ocean find themselves crashing up against everything that will kill them. If you weren't paying attention, if you weren't actively guarding against it, your mind would race ahead and would race away from you, and before you knew it, you'd be checklisting where you were, or more often than not, where you weren't. Last night, or maybe the night before, your mind was racing away with and from itself, and then sleepless, you found yourself silently analyzing your ever-thinning circle of friends. These had been people that you had once enthusiastically orbited around, but that lately you had growingly found yourself distancing yourself from. There was a lack of anything that you could find in common with them. These people had gradually been drifting further and further away from you like a message sealed in a bottle carried on the currents of the ocean, leaving the confines of a cove and heading out into the open seas. Or maybe it was the other way around. Maybe it was you inside of the bottle, drifting away from them. In the middle of that sleepless night, you innocuously stumbled upon the realization that you had no real intention of ever preventing such a drift. Almost subconsciously, you had allowed these friendships to decay and to crumble. It is inarguable that any longer, the more you thought about it, conversations about upcoming gym sessions with personal trainers, that meandering chatter about potential marriages or about what eventual children would look like, had perennially left you feeling vacuously empty. You didn't want to discuss those things. Those subjects grew to become of zero interest to you. These people were meant to be your friends, and yet you felt yourself drifting so very far away from them. It were as if you were altogether living in a different emotional hemisphere. And so, as more time had passed, you invariably had been disconnecting from them. It felt like a natural process. Natural, like how the tides of the sea pull away from dry land. The chasms between you and the people that made up your social circle didn't make you feel lonely. In fact, the only real sense of loneliness occurred when you were in their company. You lay sleepless and were too tired to be able to corral your mind and the places it was taking you. In these kinds of moments, there is very little that is off limits. Locked within the borders of your own mind, you found yourself continuing to assess different chapters of your life. You looked at your relationship with your work. You looked at your career, at your employers, and much like with your friends, you recognized that as time has passed, it is something that has grown colder. Working for one of the century-old big banks may once have sounded great, and may once have looked even greater than it sounded on your LinkedIn profile, but when you really thought about it, towards the surface of your thinking rose an inescapable revelation. Inside of the realm of the quiet of that sleepless night, it all slowly unveiled itself to you. You understood something that you had chosen to constantly overlook. You woke up every morning, regardless of how much or of how little you had slept, and you went to work. And you worked. And at the day's end, you ignored the fact that you were left feeling empty. You would get to work and fire up the tools that assisted you. You would switch on your 4 monitors that were connected to the world of numbers, and you would use an abundance of live market data to build mathematical models that would assist the traders of your bank with understanding risk and the prices of whatever they wanted to deal in. It was like what you had always tried to do, to understand the random chaos of the seas, only this was profitable, but left you feeling bereft of any real emotion. In the midst of that silent, screaming night, you found yourself wondering where it all went wrong. Perhaps wrong isn't the word. You wondered when it was that everything that you did slowly grew to become so irrelevant. You could have cured cancer. You could have solved some of life's great secrets. Instead, you spent hours creating mathematical models, testing them for any failures and watching others find happiness with the profits that you assisted them in making. Not that it was ever obviously any different, but assessing your feelings towards your career and the direction in which it was headed, you are now learning to be distinctly aware that your professional journey has for a substantial amount of time lacked any real form of inspiration. It is devoid of emotional excitement. It works, but only inside of a tight parameter of what work can be. Because of your job, you can pay your bills. You can pay for dinners in nice restaurants and pick up the drinks tab too. But beyond the money, you haven't really moved in any great direction for years. You have earned money, but only ever at the cost of emptiness. You haven't felt anything real, anything worth feeling for what has felt to you to be forever. What you do for a living does not bring you any joy, and you wonder if it ever did. You growingly feel more and more that it is difficult to ignore that all that you are really doing is just working for the sake of working. You are working in order to apply order. It is what is expected of you. So every day, you get dressed for work and just do it, absent of any investing feelings or any sense of inspired happiness. Perhaps this is why increasingly you couldn't sleep. Or maybe it was because you were in a relationship with a man that you felt at times treated you as if you were a stranger. Or rather, he just didn't ever begin to care enough about you to even start to know you enough to treat you in any other way than with a complete, yet designed sense of disregard. Looking back, it seems strange to you how you could be so close to someone while simultaneously being so far away from them. You remember your mother. Analyzing your entire relationship with him, you now understand that he never really much cared about your opinion. So many times he listened to what you were saying and then just spoke over you. Or worse, spoke through you as if you were a window. It was countless the times that he fought over your thoughts. It was on a micro level, but also very much on the macro level too. When it came to the big stuff, like where together you would move to, he dismissed all of the areas of London that you had suggested. He would look at you and say, the levels of crime are too high. He would smile and say, the transport links are too fractured. Or the architecture wasn't what he had envisioned. The area didn't have any quality pubs. And so, you always adjusted yourself to meet his vision. You forced yourself to learn to love what he wanted to love. And always regardless of anything that you had ever wanted. The small stuff, like what you would eat for dinner, what TV show or movie you would stream, even that would be entirely his decision. You would make suggestions and he would acknowledge them, but then, slowly, almost methodically, he would deconstruct them. Every year you were given your allotment of days for you to take your holidays. You always wanted to visit here, where you now are. You told him how much you yearned to visit Goa. Repeatedly, he would simply overrule you, talk you into traveling to somewhere else. You couldn't help but just accept what he pushed. He was a lawyer. He had a way with words. You always ended up agreeing with him. You always surrendered. You always submitted. Maybe it was because it was easier to do so. Maybe because he was able to convince you of a logic that you just couldn't quite see. Or maybe it was simply because you had been nurtured to lose any and every argument. You had been born inside of a losing argument. No. You were born and raised to never learn how to even argue. You were designed to just accept whatever was decided for you. You always just gave way. One, or maybe 2 nights ago, helplessly sleepless, and inside of that midst of the brain fog of not knowing how you could possibly switch off your mind to enable you to slip into a state of deep and much needed sleep, you somehow managed to part the seas and salvage the memory of how poker, during your time at university, worked wonders for your insomnia. You slowly peeled yourself out of bed, careful not to wake him as he peacefully slept, and lightheaded from the ever-spreading tiredness that ravaged your body, you made your way to the living room. You didn't have a laptop, but you knew that your boyfriend did. He often sat there next to you using it as you both watched television shows that he had chosen to watch. You knew that in all probability, that laptop would be on the coffee table between the sofa and the television. And as you walked into what was once your living room, there it was, sitting on that coffee table, just like it always was. As you opened it, the screen lit up and there it was. You silently remembered the very first time that you saw the sea in Hastings, those waves crashing against the sea walls, and then you remembered how you'd visualized yourself as a pirate with a wooden leg and an eye patch, fighting balance aboard a ship being rocked by huge, angry waves. In that moment, sat there staring at the irrefutable evidence of his infidelity, you felt like a captain of that pirate ship being rocked left to right by those same insurmountably angry, huge waves. If you were stood on the deck of a ship amidst a tumultuous sea instead of sat on a sofa you'd bought together at IKEA, you may have fallen over. Maybe it had always been there, but you'd never grown the courage to look for it. Just how whispers can echo loudly in an empty cave. For many years you had suspected that perhaps your boyfriend had been cheating on you. There were so many times when you thought what he was saying just didn't add up. It was his behavior. It was his attitude. There were so many occurrences where he had seemed so emotionally nonchalant, at times disconnected and detached from you and your relationship as a whole. Those whispers that had bounced off of the walls of your cave reverberated so loudly, and you could hear a truth point out to you that, when it came to your relationship, he were neither here nor there. Wherever he was in the world, if beside you, it often felt that he was somewhere else. And in front of you, on his brightly lit laptop screen that was glowing in the dark, much like how your laptop would glow in the darkness of your accommodation when at university you played poker long and deep into the night. There it was. The indisputable evidence. He was a cheat.